We are recording.
Call this April 14th, 2025 meeting of the Momar Town Council to order. All members are present. To also welcome those in attendance, we have Nancy Westbrook from the graphic, and we have the gentleman whose names I didn't catch from Mideast.
Joshua and
Seth Walker.
Okay,
Joshua.
welcome guys.
Thank you for having us.
First order of business is we will do the consent agenda items. We'll get to you guys quickly.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda? Any opposed? Motion carries. Sheila, did we have any public comment?
No.
Alright. Mr. Jackson, fire report.
I have not received one. It was requested. If I get it later, I'll let you know.
Other council reports.
I don't have any today. Would you give that to Sheila, please?
Ms. Georgian, audit. Any correspondence, Sheila?
Yes. 1 second. The permits we did for this month, there were inquiries about, Ryan Pennington bought the lot at County Home Road and alternate right up here where the gentleman's. man's
Solid
already
Peak.
built it. It's the lot next to them, he's planning on building a house there. We issued a well and septic tank. That is one we should, excuse me, that was the one we did issue the well and septic tank for. We've had several inquiries about 5658 Memar Way, which is the lot right across from my house, basically the old Leonard property. From what I understand, that is under contract now, but I've not had anybody come in about acquiring pretty permits yet. Mr. Thorne, that lives up here that redid the Hinton House, he came in and requested a permit for a nonprofit business office at his home. He met the ordinances, and as long as he does that, there was no permit required for him to get. Touch of Father's Love got a permit for the sign on their building. And we asked my Royalton Club to fill out a permit for their chicken supper, but we did not hear from them. Because we were looking it up when we did the community day, if you're wondering why we asked for a permit. We looked it up when we did community day, and we needed a permit to be legal inside of the town to do our community day. And in looking that up, we figured out that all this time, the Royalton Club was supposed to be getting a permit also to do their chicken supper. So, I talked with Jordan and asked her, told her I was mailing her a permit, it was a formality, it wasn't gonna cost them anything. And, she told me it wasn't a problem, she would mail it back to me or bring it to me or send it to me, and I never saw her. So that was the permit.
What does it require? What does it say, the stipulations of the event you're having? We've
It's-
never had one in,
I know y'all they've never got one,
since
but they should have.
1964.
But they should have. It goes back to that thing where Willis taught y'all about where if we're gonna have the ordinance in the book,
But what kind of events is required to have one?
any type of event was required to have.
What does the wording say in the ruling?
It could be the ordinance book, read it to you, it's right now in front of you. Where do you remember what page it's on?
I do not, but I'll dig back and find it. Page 28 probably. fairs, festival, any temporary outdoor event within recreational and entertainment use category. We're required, anything sponsored by town or nonprofits in all residential districts. For-profit commercial events, hours of operation shall be between 7 and 11, and the amount of noise shall not disrupt activities in adjacent land. Permission authority shall not grant permit unless it finds that parking generated by the event can be accommodated without undue disruptions, interference, and normal flow of traffic, or to the right of adjacent and surrounding property owners. So,
Well, nobody was getting out of a car, nobody was parking, it was all,
correct.
it was all just pick up and leave.
But
It does interrupt the flow of traffic, so.
what this is, if we're gonna have it in here, we in this room better be following it, because she is required by law to follow it. And therefore, and I wasn't gonna say this at this point, but that means if there's something in this book or what they come up with that one of us in this room has no intention of following, it doesn't need to be in the book. Because then we do take the risk of invalidating part or all of our zoning.
Then it needs to be across the board.
Correct.
That
That's what I'm
for
saying.
purposes.
That's
Like
exactly what I'm
animals
saying.
and chickens and.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes,
Because
storage units.
in this room, there are probably a dozen zoning violations right now. If you really want to get down to it.
And the dog kennel and.
Right. So.
They're not in this room though.
The four of you and the 7 members of the planning board are the 11 people on the planet that have the ability to change this. Nobody else can do that. But as long as it's here, she is obligated to follow it. Past history notwithstanding, whether it's been followed or not, she is obligated to follow it. And I'll do you one better, or a little further. In the legislature right now, part of HB 765 holds local officials accountable for not following procedure and process, including your own procedure and process. And when I say accountable, I mean criminally. It's not law yet, but it's a bill. It's what they're wanting to do. So, shouldn't be a whole big rigmarole. Let's just take it out if you don't want it. All right?
But therein lies also the thing we talked about, Will, where Touch of a Father's Love plans on trying to repair the barn and have concerts and that kind of thing. So if they can simply say, well, I don't need to get a permit because the Lordsons don't get a permit for their chicken supper, or we didn't get a permit for our community day, but we did. And we're trying to get more in line with what we need to be doing to honor that ordinance book.
I've talked a whole lot about dotting I's and crossing T's.
Yeah.
That's what we gotta do. It's not really a choice.
The only other thing I have in the reports is I did complete the ARP compliance report for this year, so that is done.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's all I have.
We did not move anything from the consent agenda, so I'm actually gonna turn the floor over to Seth and Joshua from Mideast and let them proceed.
Alright, thank y'all for having us again. And I'll try to be brief, just going back through the PowerPoint, but just to recap on what we are offering as far as what we've been working on with our towns. What we've done primarily in the past, what we had been offering was 160D updates and just general statute updates. But with working with all the towns that we've been dealing with, especially small towns, what we've come to learn was that there was a lot of things that a lot of them wanted to have changed additionally to the 160D updates, which that really started our whole model ordinance overview that we've been working on and the template that we've created. realizing that there's a lot of things that a lot of towns wanted to have changed and needed to have fixed, in addition to just the statutory updates that we're coming across. We had worked on a whole template that just included the basic statutory language and then also some template sections for what you would typically want as a requirement of like a minimum basic ordinance for a town in order to keep it operational. And then the goal would be, and what we're trying to do, is to take all the ordinances and documents that you have, put it into a single cohesive document, broken up between 3 separate books, and I've laid that out on that other, it's probably easier to see it on the little single page, but the way that we would have it all combined, for one, it would be broken up between the charter, although the charter is the actual title of the book one, it's gonna have to change from charter. We realized that after the fact that it could be confusing with the actual recorded charter. So it's gonna be foundation, general ordinances, and then technical ordinances, broken up as defined by general statutes, 168-77. And it makes it easy for us to break up because we can clearly come to the definition of what types of ordinances fall into which categories. For example, like general ordinances is all regarding the public health, safety, or welfare of the citizens. It's mainly the police powers. Technical ordinances going into like the development regulations and more specific like building and plumbing, electric wiring. And since y'all already have the 160D update already done in the zoning ordinance itself, I've got a few bullet points I just wanted to go through just to address what we would be doing with your ordinance other than just recombining everything. We had looked through, there's a few other statutory updates that we would have to include. Senate Bill 300 is one of them. That's the penalty update, kind of removes the teeth out of a lot of the development-related applications. And another reason why we broke it up between general ordinances and technical ordinances is because the general ordinances are technically still allowed to have misdemeanors attached to them, but the technical ordinances are no longer allowed to have like a misdemeanor or a criminal penalty associated with them. So like the zoning ordinance, for example, right now in the penalty section, you're still addressing criminal penalties when it can't be actually enforced. There are a few other sections that we were trying to look at, and since 160D is doing it again, what we'd be doing is going through and trying to get all the other sections that might have been updated through like session law, like the variance section of the zoning ordinance. There's a session law that updated that just in regards to what's considered a undue hardship. So a few additional statutory updates in terms of the language. But aside from that, I just wanted to get a general feel for what other aspects of the ordinance could be improved and what's been working well and what's not been working well. Since we're recombining everything, I made a few points just from our review of the ordinance so far. I'm going to go into a few specifics. But the zoning ordinance, for example, I know right now it looks like y'all have 10 zoning districts. Is that right? Is that what's broken up, at least from all the books?
Yeah, that's good.
Since the zoning map update, I'm kind of deviating from the actual PowerPoint, but just to get back on track, near the end of it, we do offer the zoning update, so we will be updating the zoning map for whatever's been changed since the last update. We haven't received a copy of that yet, but do you know when the last zoning map was adopted by chance, roundabout?
Are you talking about adjustments too? Because we did those adjustments when they did the, we were dealing with the food bank, we updated our table of uses and added one in there, and then we also put, what was it, Miss Martha, we did, I know we updated the table of uses with the food bank. What else was it we did?
Didn't we update some of, for Marshalls and all that places several years ago? George Oil, do you remember that?
That was before my time.
Right, it's probably before your time. We did some updates, changed, because we found out that where the store was, it wasn't actually zoned for commercial, it was zoned for something else. So the store all those years had been there and it was not zoned for commercial, it was a zone for something else. You remember that, Edward?
It's Bass Oil Company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was several years ago, we did all those changes, and I can't remember, it was when.
We changed it after the store had closed.
Yeah, after the store.
Did y'all change the zoning on the map or just the uses in the ordinance?
I think the zoning on the maps changed too.
Yeah, I think the zoning on the maps changed too.
Yeah, that would be appropriate.
I know we voted to change it, I
I
don't
made
know
y'all
where
a
it
copy
actually
of the
took place
map.
or not.
That I did not send y'all, but I didn't have a copy to send you.
But, and I'll follow up with an email, but, just any additional documents like that, like, since we're updating the zoning ordinance, if there are, rezonings, annexations, whatever it may be that would have changed it since the last update, if we can have that just provided so we can make sure we don't leave anything out. Some of the towns we've dealt with, their zoning ordinances in black and white, just different patterns for different zones, from like looks like it's from the sixties, so.
That's the map, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it industrial, it was approved originally,
Right, yeah.
and that was incorrect.
Yeah,
We didn't want that, but that's what it was.
yeah. We did,
Like,
I know we did some changes, because we didn't want, fertilizer company or something to come in and try to build there, you
well, I
know.
mean, it wasn't fertilizer warehouse.
Yeah, at one time, so I mean, there was something about we didn't want,
Well, so was basketball.
right, so we had to, we changed the zoning
I
deed.
don't know if that helps you or not, I was just.
Oh, that's I see. You mind holding on just for a second, just
You can have those. I know
Show,
that's-
show where the Bass Oil Company was, that's the,
That's gonna be
Parcel.
right. The back part was this industrial, and that little bitty part right there is already listed as commercial.
we took it out of
That was not.
industrial.
A bit commercial.
Yeah.
I'll have to look through and see if I can find where they did those changes.
The industrial's what it was put in originally in 91 when we incorporated. But what it should have been was commercial.
We didn't want something too intense, close to whatever those uses are in that area. You got your system right.
Because for years and years, it was a country store, gas station, a oil, gas business, and then a fertilizer house and tires and batteries. That's everything they did. And a farmer operation.
I see there's 7, I guess, actual in-use zoning districts, but the ordinance having 10. Just for the sake of understanding, is there any, would y'all want that to be simplified any at all? I know that like certain towns that we've dealt with, they'll have, like one of them had 3 residential districts and 2 of them were so similar they just wanted to combine it for the sake of simplicity. Some towns even have like 3 that are the same size as y'all, and only have 3 zoning districts, but just depending on how in-depth y'all want it, with y'all having more than average in terms of the number of how it's broken up, would y'all want to simplify the number of zoning districts by combining anything at all?
So what would you change, for example?
I don't know if it's as relevant with the map after looking at the ordinance, but like just for example, there's a RA, hold on. There are 5 residential districts mentioned. I haven't looked at them too in depth to know what would be easier to combine and the way that makes it make the most sense, but stuff like that where you see more like redundancy in the same somewhat type of district where it might be easily combined, but before even getting into that, I just wanted to see if that was something y'all were open to if it happened to be.
Making it simpler would be, as long as you stay within the rules and make it allow would be, sound like a good idea to me.
And I noticed also the ordinance, it references that y'all were basing the uses for these zoning districts off of the SIC, the Standardized Industrial Classification System. And I think the 1987 update was the one that was referenced in here. Has that been kept up to date, or have y'all deviated from using the SIC as the reference point for all the uses?
It is not up to date.
Do y'all want to stick by the SIC? Some towns still have that as their main reference point for uses. Some
What would be the
townships-
benefit to change it?
The benefit to change it is that you have a bit more flexibility in defining things. The benefit with staying with it is you're tying your uses to a specific standardized definition, so it's a lot less wiggle room in terms of someone trying to claim that something's an allowed use when it might otherwise
Then
not
leave
be.
it like it is.
Yeah, so instead of having to go too in depth with your definition, just referencing the SIC.
So what would
use.
you recommend?
Personally, I like the SIC as a reference point because it stays somewhat consistent and it's
The 87?
fairly. Say that again?
Is that the one in 87 you said?
Not, it's been updated since 1987, but I mean, if you're referencing the standardized industrial classification system, the
And that's the
only,
way ours is now.
as far as I'm aware, it references that that's how it should be set up, but I don't know if y'all have been updating it since then.
No,
Kind of,
no, it's not bad.
What has been done to it is there are quite a few, 0000s on that table of uses that probably falls under another SIC code.
Okay.
But that's what I would submit.
And I know in looking through it, we've noticed some things that we need to add that are not in here.
Gotcha. Do you have any clear examples or something that you can point to?
Well, like people now can drive they're not called golf carts anymore, what are they called?
UTVs?
You know, on the highway, the 2-lane roads. Our requirements are not in here, that's not updated in here. I was trying to think, what else did we find, Will? It wasn't in there that we discussed.
I can't think of a whole lot more that wasn't in there. There's, if you've been digging in it, you've seen there's some redundancies and some, for example, we've also got inconsistency in, say, the mobile home standards. And that probably needs to be more or less standardized. We've got, a few ordinances there that in my opinion don't exactly match our 2040 plan, which is basically saying we're agricultural and would like to stick to our agricultural roots. Yet we've got things like not allowing shipping containers. We have certain limits on animals that are, to me, inconsistent. And so I don't know if maybe we should do from the animal standpoint, do a acreage density thing or something along those lines. Cause you know, we've got plots of land here that are 20, 30 acres and we're telling them they can't have a goat.
Yeah.
You know, you don't exactly want 4 goats on 1 acre, but at the same time, really?
Yeah.
So,
kind of revisiting those sections. And if, y'all can put together, I guess, a list of things like that, but like you mentioned, the ATV or whatever other specifics that y'all want to have.
Well, just like this, I'm the shipping container. I've had a shipping container before the town was a town.
exactly.
But it has been moved on my property.
Right.
But now then, there's a couple more that came after the fact,
Yeah.
but they're still here. And the same thing with the mayor's chickens and
Yeah.
Brian's chickens and
Yep.
Sheila's chickens and.
Exactly.
Seems like chickens are big.
Chickens
Which are all on the town
chickens are a
board or
pretty
planning
big thing
board.
in some places.
We wish we could have them where we live, but whatever, it's more or less.
Yeah, and we're still gonna be doing our review and trying to find things that we'll bring back up, but yeah, if y'all already have some things, if y'all can put together a list and give us via email, things that y'all feel like should be addressed or looked at in particular, we'll definitely take a look at that. As far as the zoning goes, my recommendation, considering that we're already less districts on the map that's being used compared to what's in the ordinance, I would recommend if you would allow us to simplify it in a way that doesn't get rid of the intent of how you're trying to break everything up, but at the very least get rid of the districts that are not actually being used. And then I can take a closer look to see if it's worth trying to consolidate any of that. And then as far as the SIC, The only issue with the SIC, which can be addressed in the language, I don't mind, I like sticking by it just because it gives you something to reference where you don't have to go in depth and you're not worried about vaguely defining something that someone could come in and do a use that was not really intended to be allowed. But the language that I would prefer to use would be referencing it only to the current, and you can state the specific last update of the SIC, because you don't want to tie it to the SIC directly, because if the SIC happens to be updated in the future, and there's some other things that are added that, I mean, like take solar farms that they were added in some towns that they just had the SIC referenced, and suddenly now solar farms are allowed in districts that the town didn't even know was allowed in. But tying it to that, I like that idea if y'all want to stick with it. I just would have to go back and find out what additions or changes have been made that y'all might have already adopted that don't align with this. I see if y'all haven't been following it previously. But other than that, a couple other main sections that a lot of towns wanted us to look at in particular were the processes for enforcement and nuisances, and well, let's stick with that first. As far as enforcement and nuisances go, or any issues in the problem that feel like they're constantly occurring or things that are constantly brought up, I guess sections or parts of the ordinance that haven't really worked well in practice, are there any things like that kind of come to mind, or things that would probably be better to almost revise, update in a way?
You talking about something like the kennels? Would that be an example?
Well, I'm kind of speaking vaguely, so
Well, let me-
anything that seems like.
Let me tell you one that keeps coming up.
Okay.
We've got a local lady in town, and they did this after we were incorporated. They came to the town and wanted to put in they wanted to build a doghouse, a dog pen, and a storage shed.
Okay.
And they met with the mayor, or Kenneth, he was the zone administrator at the time, and he later became the mayor. And this was after we incorporated. And he told him what he was wanted to do, just put up a dog pen and a storage building. And he said, as long as you're not gonna do a kennel and a dog factory, that's fine. Well, it ended up, he put in a major kennel with a sewer system and raising and selling puppies. And it was never nothing done.
No zoning.
The
permit or
town has
anything?
never done anything about it. He just sort of slid it in. But we have complaints all along. It goes in cycles. Some of the neighbors will complain and then it'll go away. But I mean, that's just some of our dirt. But it's been going on since 30 years.
You said that was, that happened right after it was incorporated?
We were incorporated because we had a zone administrator. Kenneth
Was there the application for that at the time?
I cannot say that.
Is that something y'all would have a record of?
I remember we've addressed it on several occasions. And we just, I guess, choose to let it.
I imagine it's gonna kind of be one of those grandfathered in things. We just
Yeah, I think at
let
this
it-
point it'd probably be like existing non-conforming.
Well, you can't call it grandfathered in when it was done after we incorporated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's still been how many years and everybody's.
We did
been-
have a zone, Kenneth was, before he was the mayor, he was a zone administrator. And
The town,
I don't know what kind of forms were filled out, but that's the story that Kenneth told.
I've looked into those kind of issues before just because I've had something like that come up in one of the small towns that we dealt with. But the courts have, anytime this has gone to court where a town has decided to revoke a permit if the permit was issued by error and it doesn't comply with the ordinance, or if even if a business has existed on a lot and has been in use for like 20 years, if they had started it based off of
A lot.
yeah, and it didn't comply, and it might have been something hard for the town to even address, or the town didn't know they could address it. Even if they've been in practice for 20 years or more, the town can and does have the ability to revoke it, and every time it's been to court, the court has always sided with the town. There's a very specific case that I'm recalling in Raleigh where it was there was a business that was a fast food kind of business that was put in a residential district, and it just completely went ignored, and then they just got a ton of complaints randomly after the business put up a big sign, and they realized it wasn't allowed, and then all the people in the public got upset.
This one is out of sight, out of mind, so people know it's there.
Y'all,
And the few people that live around it are the ones that do the most complaining,
Sure.
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. So that would be up to y'all if that's something y'all want to have addressed. I mean, y'all do have the right to revoke it if there was even if the zoning administrator at the time signed off on the permit, you still have the right to revoke it if the permit was signed off based off of an error of it.
I'm
not
pretty
lining
sure
up
there
with
was never a
ordinance.
permit signed off on
So,
what ended up being built. But that would not be a pretty
yeah.
situation.
No, that
No,
That's a lot of the reason why a lot of the towns don't want to do anything about those, just because it's such a mess to try and get into telling someone that they have to stop doing the business that they've been running for, I don't know how long that one's been there, but.
Yeah.
Well, and you'll be going to court.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
gonna
gonna-
Especially
It's
since
not-
we've allowed
it's
thing
in a small
all the
town.
time.
be, yeah, so,
I got a call this week.
Where about in town is that, dog pound?
Sir,
Where about in here is that dog pound?
quarter mile.
Annie Lee, go
Pretty
to
much
Annie
right
Lee
there where-
Lane.
With Bass.
yeah.
It's put a little mark, you know.
And you know, I can hear the dogs.
It's right in the middle of my.
I know the dogs
Annie Lee Lane.
Oh, it's by the
Turn on
purple
that.
You
too.
know the people live
It's
by
right
it.
there.
It's sort
By
of-
the-
Square, yep, right in there. I think
Well, I'll
that's-
look that up.
I don't hear all the time, but I do hear.
It's the real property. It's called Stillwater Kennels. They need to put a name on it now.
is that use allowed in other
There's
districts?
gotta be
I'm
more than
guessing.
one, I know that much.
Technically, kennels are not allowed.
Anywhere in town?
Correct.
In fact, I believe our animal count is 5.
Yeah,
Say that again?
I believe our current animal count is 5.
Like a max
Allowed.
weight.
I mean, that's just what I knew. The town knows it's not,
let's see. here,
Allowed.
I'm trying to find-
Yeah,
and it got put in place in false,
Long this, out the long.
and then we just never done anything about it.
Kennels, here we go. Kennels or pet grooming canine facilities where required as RAE and CE districts. Pens and runs shall be located a minimum of 500 feet from any residentially zoned or used lot.
you said RAE and what was the other one?
CE.
CE, I don't even see that on the zoning map. So that's probably one of the ones that's made but
Probably.
not used yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Says every female dog or cat while in heat shall be confined in a building, secure enclosure in such a manner that she or he will not come in contact with another dog. But, yeah, I mean, it is in here, but evidently it is allowed in RAE and CE districts.
And that's, I mean, a lot of the meetings that we've had with the other towns, a lot of the issues that they wanted to have corrected were inconsistencies in the uses in certain areas and then how it doesn't line up with the zoning ordinance or the map, and it might be for various reasons. It could be stuff that's grandfathered in, or it could be stuff that was like this where it pops up and might not have been there, or might not have should have been there. But are there any other issues where things have maybe it doesn't fit within the zone that they're actually being used in, if it's something that needs to be possibly changed on the map or addressed? If maybe you have grandfathered businesses or anything that doesn't fit in the zoning district it's in or anything like that?
Well, not to bring up a bad time, but in food bank, but
They're under a special use permit.
Yeah.
that's a whole different other story.
I'm guessing y'all don't want to add the kennel as a special use permit within R1. So is that something y'all want to just, I guess, I mean, that's really kind of the y'all as far as how you wanna handle that one, but y'all do have the right to revoke it, or at least tell them to stop.
I won't make any suggestions, I was just letting you know what's an example, what was.
I think it's going to just be grandfathering it.
No, we don't, but we obviously don't wanna make it a permitted use now or anything like that, so that we don't have 50 dog kennels show up. But, as far as the particular one that's there, we'll discuss later.
Okay. The only reason I'm keen on that one, I mean, if we did update this, I mean, for this update of the ordinance, if y'all wanted to have that one as the only grandfathered in situation,
Mhm.
we could just address that as,
You could put it in a definition, like operating since 1998.
Yeah,
or
something like that. but then it wouldn't allow any new ones to pop up in R1, but, other than that,
So under your thoughts, Mayor, we need to get rid of it or grandfather it in.
Kind of goes along with storage containers that are already here.
Correct.
Yeah, like I said, we can talk more about that.
and any other, nuisance or enforcement issues that have been like a recurring thing? Or, I don't know if y'all, who would be the one handling like the nuisances or sending out violations? Is that something
Sheila's
that's
the
been active?
zoning
Is
administrator, so she handles it.
that something that y'all frequently do, or is that something that's rarely done, I'm guessing?
Rarely, very rarely.
Are there any issues or nuisances or anything that's not really addressed that might be worth considering adding to the ordinance?
I don't know. I would have to think about it, but I don't think there's any.
And I'm gonna include this in the email as far as what we're gonna request, but any other documents, any transitory ordinances or any separate additional ordinances that are separate from the zoning and the general, including like the fee schedule, all that stuff. If y'all can provide all that, just via email.
We're
Just so
planning on trying to update that fee schedule later in this meeting.
but just so we're not leaving anything out.
Yeah,
As
we've
far-
actually got to come up with, what do the small towns do, just a question, just wondering, like violations? How do they do like with their violation fees, what they charge people for their violations?
Most of them will cross their fingers and hope that the letter scares the property owner into fixing the issue. But primarily, a lot of them will, it depends on I guess, the situation. Like if it's a, very overgrown, dilapidated structure or property, what we've typically done as an enforcement is once we receive a complaint, that's when we try to go ahead and initiate. That way, we're not like randomly going about, unless we have like a
Picking and choosing.
Yeah, and otherwise you have to make a regular occurrence of trying to go through the town and actually addressing all issues like that, so it doesn't seem like you're just picking. But we'd send a letter out, notifying them of the violation, and giving them a time frame, and that's up to the town typically. I think it's like 30 days or so. Some of them.
Yeah, I know the county has, I know the contractor that gets the contract, but the county, the abandoned houses, has him go in and demolish the whole house and clear it up on the county's expense. I don't know why it falls back on the landowner or not.
Typically, we have a lien on their tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
Some
got
of them
that
are just
down.
cleaning up the property and some of them are demolishing the structure. But back to the kennel, if we were in the future to grandfather something like that in, if it ever ceased to exist and then it was non-use, could we not let it happen again?
Typically, you have 180 days.
Can we- Could it be written up that way?
Yeah, he just mentioned 180 days. Typically, if it's something that's grandfathered in or a nonconformity or a legal nonconformity, if the use stops for whatever reason for a period, typically 180 days, then no one can continue that use in the property. Pretty much now you revert back to what's permitted currently, and the grandfathered in is just
If we choose to grandfather it in, I'd love to see that in place. That's just my. And I don't think that our public could complain with that.
Are there any other sections of the ordinances right now, and even maybe regarding, like the breakup of the administrative, I guess, aspects, so like planning board, board of adjustment, or is there anything like in the ordinance that doesn't reflect the current way that y'all handle things? Like y'all have a planning board and board of adjustment, or is it?
One and the same.
One and the same.
Okay. Yeah, most small towns, some of them don't even have either of them. Just the town board, and they'll act as planning board and board of adjustment.
Oh, reckon you could do that?
Yeah, like one town that we deal with, they have a section in their ordinance for planning board and a board of adjustment, but they also have a clause in there which just outright states if they don't have a active planning board or board of adjustment at the time, the town will act in favor of one of the two, which.
I'm glad we got that.
Yes.
Do y'all wanna have just a combined section for planning board / board of adjustment, or do y'all wanna still have that broken up separately?
I would say combine it, Will.
If y'all don't intend to ever have a separate board of adjustment, then I feel like it'd probably be easier just to have it as a combined section as long as we reference the statutes for both and reference why we have which ones have the authority to do what.
We can make the recommendation.
Like it is.
Right. I don't know if the copy that you have has our recent adjustment to the Board of Adjustment makeup. But in this original copy, it did not specify that we could have ETJ members, and we added a clause. Because we have two ETJ members on the planning board, and since it's the same board of people.
Is there separate bylaws for this, or is this all in ordinance?
It's all in Article 10, I believe.
I'll send you a copy of that. I'll tell you what.
But yeah, we had it where planning board accounted for ETJ members, but board of adjustment did not. And so we had to make that adjustment.
And I'm kind of jumping all the way back to my little presentation thing, but I just want to ask those questions just so I can get a start. We've already begun to convert it and try to work through the document to find out what needs to be changed as far as statute, and then wanted to address those issues as well. But what our plan would be is to just finish continuing to recombine, and we're probably going to come up with some more questions in the meantime, but just wanted to gather all the additional documents or ordinances or whatever else that we might have to go and include right now with the draft. But what we've been doing with other towns is, I believe it's near the end of this PowerPoint, behind me. We have it as up to 5 meetings between UEC staff and the town. It's typically been a little bit less than that, but what we wanted to do is at least gather all of the additional information that we needed to, other ordinances. We're going to continue to go through it, define it, and preferably also we want to simplify a lot of it. There's a lot of things in the ordinance that could be addressed via reference to statute rather than including the whole every text word for word from the statute. That, and then there are a lot of things that I feel like probably are already covered under state law. I have to check a few of them, but like for one town that we dealt with, for this town of Parmalee, they had a rule in their ordinance where you were not allowed to throw a firebomb at a public building. Stuff like that. That's obviously not.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Right.
what
There it goes.
yeah, who would have known? But stuff like that, or anything that's covered by either state law or other existing rule, rather than restating it word for word or anything, just reducing any unnecessary complexity.
Reference to.
Yeah, so that's something we also wanted to go ahead and simplify too, but we're gonna continue to do all that stuff, add this up, and then come back with a draft. And the next draft, probably the next meeting, would be a very messy draft, because we're probably gonna come up with a lot more questions in the meantime, but just to get a start on it at least. And I think I've asked all the questions that I mainly had, but if there are any other things that y'all happen to know within the ordinance that y'all specifically want to have addressed, because we're gonna have a little bit more time on yours since you already have 160D done. So we have more time if there's even sections that y'all feel like are not expanded on or you feel like could be included or addressed more. I mean, we're perfectly willing to work on that. Like, I mean, when another town we dealt with, they didn't have like a subdivision part of their ordinance, for example. So we just made an entire subdivision section from our template and just workshopped it with the town to get that in. So if there's anything that y'all happen to know of or recommendations or things y'all want to have addressed while we're in the process of doing this, y'all can either email it to us or if there's anything right now that y'all have that come to mind.
So when, I'll ask you a crazy question, when you have the next meeting, would that need to be just planning board, or would that need to be town council and planning board? Or
I know, I mean, it would probably, I guess, have to go to the planning board just from your process before adoption, but as far as just going back and forth, I would say probably planning board, but if the town council wants to sit in on it, then we can work out however y'all want to handle it.
And sometimes actually we'll make a little subcommittee that just helps with this. Doesn't have to meet at one of your regularly scheduled meetings. It can just be a work session midday. That's a good
I was
idea.
gonna say, the hard part's gonna be with the midday thing, is all of our planning board members have public jobs.
Okay, so yeah, whatever works best for you.
It's an
Y'all will-
evening, I mean, I hate to do that, y'all, but evening, it would have to be like in the evenings.
We're used to, yeah, this is the only morning meeting I've ever seen or heard about. Only like 2 or 3.
We ain't gonna change the name.
No, no.
That's why I was wondering, cause if you did, then we would probably have to get a meet across the street, where you'd have more room for everybody to accommodate
Sure.
to be at the meeting, that's all.
Whatever works best for y'all, we'll make it happen.
Y'all, does the planning board meet monthly or is that as needed?
That's quarterly.
Quarterly?
And they can be as needed, so after you, I was gonna say, if you walked in the meeting, if you'll kind of give me a little advance notice, if you can, when you want to do it,
Sure.
I can try to
Where
make
y'all
it
from?
happen, so that.
Little Washington.
Little Washington.
I'm from Janesville.
Y'all a country boy, sure enough.
We got one stop left.
I don't, but I'll try to make it happen, so everybody can.
Little Washington.
That evening.
Well, I grew up on Outer Banks, but we
That's
went
a
to
pretty little
Greenville
town.
and then met my wife and we went to Little Washington.
A lot of people that don't like to call it Little Washington.
The blue bloods don't, but they ain't gonna listen to me now. If you tell anybody I'm from Washington, they go to DC.
Exactly.
Little Washington.
Exactly.
So that's where it comes from.
Probably say the original Washington.
The original.
You should tell somebody you're from
Makes everybody
Anaheim.
happy.
That's like we do Nashville. People say Nashville, Tennessee? I said,
Right.
no, the first, the original.
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to work in that area down there.
You wouldn't believe it. If you said Washington now, every single person's gonna ask you if it's DC. I think that's where the whole little part came from.
And you're from Janesville?
Yes, sir. I get a different response. When I tell people I'm from Janesville, if I'm too far away from the area, they'll ask where. So, no confusion there.
They are the fishing in the seafood restaurant.
You know what was the one on the river there?
Yeah, the heron.
Yeah, they have that.
They still have the,
Yeah.
the thing that scoops up the herring during their herring run.
Is that part of that building? That's
Well, there was a famous restaurant called the Cypress
Grill.
Grill that right there in Janesville when it burned down.
Right there on the water.
On the water.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago.
Down the,
Yeah. I mean, that was an existing non-conforming, it burned down and I'm sure. Yeah.
fireball.
Yeah, that might have been what happened. They didn't have that rule in their ordinance, so someone got away with it. They should have had it in there.
They got it now.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So in the meantime, we're gonna go and try to address this. Go ahead and workshop a very messy draft, and then however we want to get back together as far as a subcommittee, just for the review, and then once we feel like we have a final draft, and it could be a couple of meetings back and forth, then I guess we can just take it officially to the planning board rather than whatever subcommittee we're dealing with, and then go ahead and for like the public hearing and then adoption whenever we got time for that. But the yeah, just once I'll send the email out again. Just referencing what other documents we wanna have, just like all the other transfer ordinances, everything. And yeah, in the meantime, if there's anything else y'all have to add or bring up, if you can't think of anything now, feel free to shoot us an email and we'll try to include the concern in what we're working for.
So they need to kind of look through the council needs to look through the ordinances
That'd be great.
and to see any kind of adjustments, make notes of what they think needs to be changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, preferably anything specifically that's not currently how y'all are handling the process, or stuff that's referenced in a way that's not actually acted out in that way. So any, I guess, processes or things that aren't in line with how the town wants it to be. Really.
In the next initial meeting, you won't just go to town council again.
Sure.
Correct, okay. I'm just making sure, I'm taking notes, so I'll make sure.
And since we are, I do want to add this, since we are updating a lot and recombining a lot of things, the drafts that we will provide will have notes off to the side just explaining where that language came from, because otherwise it's a puzzle. So we want to explain exactly what we are suggesting as new language, what's been just kept from the original ordinance, and preferably we want to keep the original language if at all possible, unless it's a redundancy or it's just out of date. So yeah, we will have the draft outlined with exactly where each section came from and why. So it's not just a new document that's, we're not sure where everything has been, reorganized or
Explains
together.
where it's coming from.
Correct, yeah. And like the penalty section will have an explanation beside that for why it was updated. For example, 300, if there was like any statutory changes that we're recommending new language for, we'll explain why we're recommending new language. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have too much else to add, unless y'all have anything.
What's our approximate time? Rough estimate, I know it's hard to say.
Honestly, it's hard to say for me too, because we keep picking up new contracts, so our workload keeps shifting more and more. But based off, it kind of depends also on how many other ordinances y'all have to add. I'm assuming this is probably the majority of it, just the general zoning. You don't really have any, like 100 random extra ordinances, do y'all?
A short little town code, and that's it.
Yeah, there's nothing I know of. I said there's just some additions and there's some that just needed tweaking,
Probably
that kind of thing.
just to get the next rough draft ready, probably 2 to 3 months before the next meeting. If I wanted to,
How about maybe the June meeting
yeah, we can go ahead and
scheduled for that?
yeah,
Well, let's
try
shoot
to-
for the June
well,
meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on exactly if y'all want to do it on the actual meeting date or if y'all want to do like the subcommittee or a special call date or something.
If you just went to town council, then that's doable in the daytime. I would, because they always meet during the day.
Okay.
And when it gets to the planning board, with them, then it will have to be late evening.
Yeah, I like that idea of going to the town council. We're talking about the ordinance with y'all, since y'all are the main ones that it's gonna have to go through for the final approval, and then just going back to the planning board for the regulatory process before them recommending it back to y'all. So, yeah, if y'all wanna go ahead and set the date for June, what date would that be?
Right here.
It would be June 9th.
How far away is June 9th? I need to pull it for that.
Oh, 2 months.
Okay.
For a first draft.
Yeah, that should be fine. 'Cause, I mean, it's gonna be a messy first draft anyway,
Right,
so
right.
we're still gonna have to make a lot of changes, but.
I'm not,
You mean
I'm not
messy?
trying to rush, I'm trying to,
Yeah,
set
yeah,
expectations, that's all.
I guess messy isn't the word I should have used, but as in it's not going to be.
Work in progress.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of sections we're just going to have, instead of a note to the side explaining where a section came from, we're probably going to have a lot of questions written off to the side that we might want to come back and address. So that's what I mean by a rough draft in the sense of the word rough, I guess.
It's in the works.
And then we'll get those little areas cleaned up and figure out the answers to those questions, and then come back with something approximating a working final draft.
Sheila, you handed me the subdivision plan. Is this for us to take down or is it just?
Yes,
or is
you
it-
have that.
Okay, thank you.
What's that?
Sorry.
Alrighty. I think that's everything I had. Unless you have anything else to add? We'll look forward to seeing you at the June meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Cam.
This is who's working on your story.
No, just
Joshua,
your heart
last
there,
name?
y'all. Yeah, any
Collins.
questions?
HOLLIS,
Yes, ma'am.
and it's JOSHUA.
Mhm.
And what's your technical title?
I'm planner one, right?
Planner
Oh,
one.
your-
Those two, so
Josh, you have his card?
I do have a business.
Okay.
Yeah, please, some cards.
Makes it easy.
I'll put it right there. so-
Thanks.
Yeah. You got,
Looks
send
like
that
I've
one.
got some-
And what I'll do is when I get the story, when the story publishes, I'll shoot you an email, just so you can access it.
Awesome.
Well, you know,
What paper is it?
the Nashville graphic.
Alrighty.
It's a good little newspaper.
Thank you. We try.
I know y'all do.
That who y'all advertise with for public hearings and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank y'all so much.
Thank you, guys.
See ya. Is that ours or is that theirs?
No, that's mine, you can't have that one.
Okay, I won't steal it then. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day, be careful getting back.
As you see, we will have some homework.
Yep.
That's kinda why I made y'all copies of the ordinances and everything.
It is important that we all be on the same page.
Is there any section specifically that you could direct me to? I mean, I know we need an understanding, but is there any particular area that would need to focus on that needs?
I would, well, here's how I did it. And this is how I approach these big chunks like this. It's 184 pages, which is, a lot when you're talking legalese.
Right.
Normally, what I do when I'm approaching something like this is I'm sitting down with the text and a notepad. And I'm just quick reading it. And I make notes of things I want to go back to.
Okay.
Because things are gonna jump out at me that aren't gonna jump out at you and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's where
Everyone.
a lot of what I saw in here is,
Yeah.
this doesn't really match,
Mhm.
it came from those notes. It was,
Okay.
okay, I read something different when I was reading about the mobile home park than what I'm reading now about mobile homes in the ETJ. And like I said, every one of us is gonna see something different. So it's hard to say, one little section, because it is kind of spread all over.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, like I said, it's 184 pages, I'm hoping the finished product is closer to 130,
Right.
because there is a lot of redundancy in here.
That's what we're paying him for.
Exactly. And,
Simplify.
if it's 130, every one of us is more likely to sit down and read it than if it's 184.
Right, yeah.
And just as importantly, more importantly, the planning board is able to sift through what it is, and they don't have such a volume of stuff to sift through.
I was gonna ask y'all, do you want me to ask the planning board to also look through the zoning ordinances and come up with anything
Yes, ma'am.
that needs to be added or corrected and make a list?
Yes, ma'am.
I know when I started looking through, I looked at developmental standards for each little thing.
That's,
And that's kind of where I referenced that to start with when I was looking through it, to find something that didn't, yeah.
Okay, well, eat an elephant,
Everybody's
I
got
know it's
their own
one
way.
bite in the time, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know what.
And just skip the table of uses for now. It'll drive you nuts.
Yeah, it will. I don't like.
Because
that.
like I mentioned to him, we have things in the table of uses that are coded as a 0000, which is your default code for something there's not a code for, that I know for a fact fall under other codes. And unless you've actually got a guidebook to tell you what those SIC codes actually entail,
So we need
You're
to
not-
create a low place to put them.
there probably already is a place.
That's what I meant. We
Yeah.
just need to designate that.
Correct. We need to relocate whatever it is over
Wherever it
instead
needs
of
to go.
where it goes. The example that I used was there is an SIC code that encompasses a food bank. But we have it in here as a 0000. There's 2 or 3 others, I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there's several that there's already another code for them. And sometimes the codes don't make sense, that's why I let him do it.
Okay.
So.
Next,
And just keep in mind, what this finished product is what we have to be able to take to court to keep Momire the way it is, which is what every one of us wants. But we've got to have the tools to stand up if need be. So it is important that it be right. Next. Sheila, do you have those draft sign permits and recreational
I need a
permits?
copy
Oh,
and
then we can
run
get
paperwork.
copies, okay.
I've got the recreational and I've got the sign.
So to that end, remember we were talking about earlier that we needed a permit for our community day and that Touch of Father's Love needed a permit for their signs. There was not an existing permit, even though there was an ordinance saying they needed a permit. So Sheila went through and made up a couple, one for each. And these are basically up at this point for final approval, even though we've already used each of them once. If we have to make a tweak to them in any way, we'll just have to reissue. So that is good. Anybody see anything we need to add or subtract from those?
Are people gonna know what RMH is and stuff like that?
Just,
Residential mobile homes?
That home park, put it at home park, basically.
I mean, I'm just wondering if everybody's gonna know what these stand for. I guess they can ask.
Yeah. I guess that's really basically for me, when I go look at it on the map, see where it's located. But that's it.
Is there a new pending sign somewhere other than Touch Father's Love? Okay. Wish basket.
I really don't know voice.
Make a motion that, we accept what Sheila has put together here as our, permit for application for sign and also recreational entertainment application.
A second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the sign permit application and the recreational and entertainment compliance application, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we need to talk about fees for said permits. Most of our permit fees in town are waived for nonprofits, so it didn't really matter in either of these circumstances. But we do need to come up with a number for the future. What's our current? What's the $70?
$30. That recreational permit, we've never. But we do have a sign permit listed with the
Right.
on the list already.
$30.
So if you wanted to leave that at 30, you probably could. But the recreational permit, you're gonna have to. I mean, if you want to be $30 like a zoning certificate, a zoning permit. And the sign permit, or if you don't want to be as much.
If I may fling a thought out there on it. The purpose of the recreational is basically a heads up. Hey, stuff's going on in case you get calls about noise complaints, yada yada. I don't know that it's necessary to increase somebody's cost of putting on said event for that. I think, to me, the motion of just walk in here and sign a piece of paper and get your permit, I think is reasonable and appropriate. That way it's super easy. It's not adding any undue strain to anybody who ends up doing something like that.
Do we have a list of what it old comparisons?
There was no old comparison.
None of these?
No, that's what y'all came up with.
That's what's
I mean,
been
ever
done.
since I've been here, this is what y'all used. The price, you know, the amounts.
So that's the same fees since you incorporated?
Probably.
So it hasn't gone up since when?
We did change the town tags, but
Yeah, we did change town tag, but other than that. Cause we did it free for town residents and ETJ and I just kicked us off.
Remember that.
I've always wondered about why the zoning permit for well and septic tank is the same price as the building permit. I've always wondered why they were the same fee. I mean, that's just me.
any thoughts on that? And if we leave it like it is, it's just no charge on the recreational.
So this is all the same as it was.
But if there's a
So
violation,
what are-
how can we?
There's nothing to vote on this.
Do we need to add a fee for the recreational permit, is what we're basically,
Add what now?
a fee for the recreational permit. Is basically.
Which would be what?
That's the question.
But if
Which would
we
be
don't,
what?
if we don't
Which would be how
charge a
much?
fee, if they violate it and don't come get the permit, then how could we?
Then that's a
Do anything
non-compliance,
about
which is a different issue.
Okay. And I know on this list here, it does say septic zoning certificate, but Karen always told me that it was $30. So that Pacific, we've never used that $10 fee. Karen always told me it was $30 for either or, so that's what I've always charged.
So what example would be under, recreational permit?
And that's,
Well, that would go back to the chicken plate sale, that would go back to community day. If somebody wanted to have a
But
concert
now we
down
don't
the
insert
street,
something
So we don't have one at the moment.
we don't
we
have
have
a
no
fee.
fee, we just
Yeah,
voted on
we
the
don't charge.
permit.
Non-profits are not charged for the would not have to pay the fee anyway,
Right.
because they are non-profit, but if say, I don't know, somebody wanted to rent.
If say any leeway, and y'all gonna laugh at this, because it'll be funny, but say any leeway wants to do a community day and a parade, they'd have to have a permit.
The people on that street.
Yeah. They'd have to have a permit because of, large public gathering may impede traffic, etc.
Like a bicycle rally or something.
Exactly.
Because
Do we
car
wanna
show,
charge a
if
fee
you
for that
wanted
permit, or do we not? Is basically what we're
to-
getting.
If somebody
Make
rented
a motion, no fee.
We have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of no fee for recreational permit, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, no fees for recreational permit.
I have a question.
Shoot.
When you were saying about non-compliance, so, I've had situations where I've had people to say they're not going to do this, or not, just kind of bow the neck and defiance. Is that, that's what we have at our defense if we so choose to try to get ahead of a situation that may come up.
Correct. So,
It's already here.
Sheila then would send out a letter. This whatever is non-compliant, you have 180 days to correct. Language of the letter varies a little bit, but not often. And moves into after 180 days, depending on what it is, you may be charged whatever the amount is per day, per week, per month, whatever. Then as that accrues, as that accrues, that then can go to court for a civil charge to recoup. Yes, if the property is abandoned and has too many liens on it, you can't put an additional lien on it. Correct. That'll happen.
I thought,
But that's also an oddball.
But we don't
That's not
have,
typical.
we don't have a code enforcement officer. Well,
That's literally what it says, by the way.
Right. Double duty.
Yeah.
But I guess the town has chosen in the past not to act on several of them, obviously.
Correct.
And if we start acting on any of, and the public is aware of this, you know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be thrown back in your face.
One of a couple of things that's gonna happen.
Sir?
Well, there's a couple ways that can go. And ultimately, here's the decision, or here's the choice. And this is the way that I would explain it to anyone that came and sat down in my office fuming that we're now enforcing ordinances that have been on the books for 30 years. We are 45 minutes out of Raleigh. We have never had an issue before with large corporations wanting to come in and buy. But we've also never had that encroachment in Spring Hope, that encroachment in Nashville. Every one of us is here because we want to protect Momire.
Right.
That's the heart. This is the brain. If the brain dies, the heart dies too. That's why this has to be correct and enforceable and then enforced.
What would happen if that scenario I just said happened and you had to go to court? And they're gonna say, first thing their lawyer is gonna say is, well, they allowed this for 30 years and now they're gonna change it?
Well, as Seth said, I've got the case law sitting on my desk, but as he said, courts have found more than once in the last few years that just because it's in the zoning and was not enforced is not an excuse for violation. The town is still in the right, the town can still enforce.
So you
Because I
got,
was worried about that too, that's why I started nodding when he said it, because I started digging. I was very worried about that. But.
You basically said the court held up
in our favor most,
Yes.
every time he said it.
in favor of the town,
Yes.
so that's,
So
And
we
here's
just
the
pat him
flip.
on the back and tell him, well, you got away with it for 30 years.
Right. Exactly. And the flip side of that is, the courts have also invalidated your zoning book if you're not enforcing, if you're, say, selectively enforcing. And I know if
So going forward.
if we decided to go after Joe Blow around the corner for his rooster, and the mayor and the head of the planning board and the zoning administrator all have roosters, he can then turn around and sue us, and that could potentially invalidate the entirety of the zoning book, depending on how much you take off the judge. So that's why I say, if you don't want to follow something in here, take advantage of your position and make it not go in there, but it's gotta be the same for everybody. You can't have a different set of rules for anybody.
Yeah, 'cause it's just like the planning board was talking about with the animal thing, letting the ETJ basically do what they want to do and have what they want to have, but yet if you're in town, oh, well, you can't have what you want to do because
Well,
you're
you
in town.
you can't exactly compare the two either. They're not under the same rulings and they're also not, they don't have to pay town taxes.
While we're talking about that, there's two bills in the Senate right now that do away with ETJs altogether.
Whoa.
You'll do it, say it again.
Two bills in the Senate right now do away with ETJs altogether.
So,
What?
The county takes over.
Take over your ETJ of your town.
yeah, but that was put in place for a buffer for the type of municipality.
Senate Bill 314, municipal extraterritorial jurisdiction, Section A1, limitation on authority. Notwithstanding subsection A of this section, no city shall exercise power granted to cities under this chapter beyond its continuous corporate limits in a county that has adopted a zoning and unified development ordinance, which would be Dennis County.
So what's your thoughts on that?
The other part is part of a great big
Give them a copy of it.
bill. Senate Bill 493. All powers granted to this chapter may be exercised by any city within its corporate limits and transfer or relinquish. They will transfer or relinquish jurisdiction over extraterritorial. Transfer when a city annexes in an area that's currently being regulated by the county development shall remain in effect. The city has adopted those regulations. However, where's the other part on this go? I may not have highlighted that part. Any provision in a local act that grants a city the power to exercise extraterritorial planning jurisdiction under Article 19 of Chapter 160A of the General Statutes or its successor is hereby repealed. For counties with population between 25,000 and 50,000, according to the last federal census, date of repeal will be October 1st, 2027. For counties with population over 25,000, it will be October 1st, 2026.
So if that bill goes through, the county would absorb the ETJs.
Correct.
So really it wouldn't change that much, other than we wouldn't have a buffer. And they wouldn't have to come to the town to get permits, they just had to go to the county.
Correct. And the county would determine land use.
In the ETJ.
Yep.
Now, what's your personal feelings on that?
If I were an ETJ resident, I would be researching voluntary annexation. And be thinking really hard.
Let me rephrase my question then. In your, where you live, in your position, what's your thoughts on that?
I can't make
As far
that
as
suggestion.
municipality, huh?
As far as municipality,
Yeah, you're the mayor. I'm asking you.
we have to,
As far as an ETJ,
yeah.
we'd be
I
losing
love
control.
having that buffer, and we would be losing
I
control.
agree with you. I'm
Um,
seeing it this time.
My opinion, I would love to have an even bigger buffer, but they're about to take the buffer away.
Yeah.
They're trying to.
Yeah.
It's on the table.
It's on the table.
Well, it's always been, if there was room, it not to exceed a mile.
Right.
If there was room to have it.
Well, we went to the county to get more, and they turned us down.
Right.
But
That's
it's
a
not the
different
county doing it,
process.
it's the state.
It's the state. Yep. And remember, the state,
When did they vote on
it's in committee right now. I believe the committee meeting is tomorrow or Wednesday, I don't know which.
it? I would personally think,
It's making its way.
I would think personally, municipalities would not want it, any of them.
I agree. Municipalities are gonna hate it. Particularly the small ones. The
And
big
my
ones are
reason
gonna love it.
it's not for, it's for control of what comes there, is my concern.
Correct.
That's my one and only concern.
Correct. So,
I mean, how do y'all feel?
small towns that wanna preserve their own town are gonna hate it. Large towns that wanna gobble up more space are gonna love it.
Right, exactly.
And frankly,
Well, it's going, I don't see it exactly that way, but they're losing a little bit of control.
they're losing nothing because they just annex. They swallow up.
Right, yeah.
They're gonna lose control of their ETJ.
They don't have ETJs. They butt up against other municipalities. So if another town that
Well,
currently.
they probably did at one time, but they probably ain't.
Right, they've grown past ETJs. What I'm getting at is, say Spring Hope has started growing like Carrier Apex does. They no longer have an ETJ because they've been annexing that space as long as they can. Right now, with Momeyer having an ETJ, they cannot, they've got a buffer, they can't go but so far.
Right.
That's why we incorporated to begin with.
Right. If you get rid of said buffer, they can then come all the way to the town limits.
Right.
That's why small towns are gonna hate it, big towns are gonna love it. More importantly, big money builders are gonna love it.
Right.
And there's your donors to your senators and congressmen.
Okay.
They knew the right.
So don't think for a moment that short of having 1 million people, calling the legislature next week, that it's gonna get slowed down.
All right,
Because the money men are paying for it.
if the state takes our ETJ away, and Spring Hope does come all the way up to the ETJ, to where it was existing,
Mm-hmm.
you're saying they could, if nothing's done and with that ETJ that the state took away, they could come all the way to the city limits of Moma.
Right.
In theory.
Unless Momar annexed that area that was ETJ,
Correct.
which is gonna make a lot of the public mad.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of subdivisions, just like mine,
Yeah.
It was put in place for a certain reason there. And people went there because it was not in the city limits.
Well, all of these things work together. All of these things work together. And so, this is one man's opinion. We are not a town in the traditional sense that we have a designated commercial area and we have, houses stacked on top of each other and all those other things. We have some flexibility that we can be not town-like even within city limits. Storage containers, animals, things like that. And still preserve who we are. Having the in-town zoning and the ETJ zoning very similar to one another makes it a little more attractive. The tax side of it makes it unattractive, but
Unattractive to who?
to those out that are currently outside of town. But are you willing to pay a little bit to not have a neighborhood in your backyard? A new construction neighborhood in your backyard. So like I said, if I were a resident of the ETJ, I would be thinking long and hard about whether I wanted to be annexed. I don't know which way I'd fall yet, but I'd be thinking long and hard about it.
Well, a perfect scenario is the state don't adopt that.
That'd be great, but I will point out, as well as I do, once the idea's in somebody's head, they're not gonna let go of it. They'll just bring it up again.
It works
next year.
both ways.
It does. They'll just bring it up again next year. So yeah, we kinda got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I do think it was an important tangent. So I saw that pop up last week and went, ooh, everything we're doing just got 10 times more important. The pressure's on.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Would you guys, maybe write a letter to Senator Barnes or something from the town asking her not to support that, since it's in the Senate?
That's something we could do.
I think we would need to approve the law. If you write it on our behalf. Well, I don't think you need to see one on our behalf.
No, I'm not talking about me,
Yeah.
you guys. I'm asking if that's something you're thinking about doing.
It can't hurt, but it'll work.
Just say that we're in favor of keeping the ETJs. Is that the consensus of this?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's not been advertised, I don't think, a whole lot out where the public even knows that it's.
Just for the
Like I
record.
said, it's sitting in committee right now.
I would
Yes.
notice, I'll make a motion, we send that bill.
In opposition.
Put together a draft in opposition. All right. My second.
Second.
And I'm looking at it like it's protecting, help protecting our town.
It is. Any further discussion? The motion is to draft a letter to our state senator opposing taking over ETJs.
You could send it to the rep too, because doesn't it go into
It
the
has
house?
to go to both, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be to both of them.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll get that drafted and send it out to everybody and work from there. So now that we've come back full circle, violations fees. I'm actually glad he mentioned the way that he did is that, that a lot of towns have moved to, we don't move
All
on,
right.
we don't move on something until somebody complains about it. Cause that, none of us wanna drive around and be the zoning police, that's not what any of us are actually here for.
Don't open up a can of worms.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's how even the larger cities are operating. Very few actually have somebody patrolling and looking for that kind of stuff. That's HOA-ness. Alright.
So you currently have fees, or you're talking about setting fees?
We need to set and establish a fee. Or fees,
Well, what'd you do, just table that? I'm not sure what you did.
not a yet,
Oh,
but we can table it, think about it.
You're talking about something, sure, other than the, recreational?
Yeah, this is for violations. And again, we're kind of in a transition at this point. We could table that and wait until we have our new stuff made up. Do that as part of the package, or we can just kind of come up with a number now and work from there, but there is some language involved that to me makes it attractive to wait until.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion, we table
Second.
setting the fees.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright. Town seal. Sheila said it so our viewers won't be able to see it, but that's okay. That being said, as of Friday morning, we had 43 views on last month's meeting.
Oh,
I'll turn
more
around
yet.
and make it look at it. So you can see it.
We had these set up at the family day, and there were 58 votes. Letter C, which was done by Joanne Edwards, actually won by 6 votes over letter D, which was Allison Thunderberg. And then the other 2, everybody, a lot of the feedback that I got is I like parts of all of them.
right.
And so, you know, I kind of told people, I said, well, we're gonna have to sit down as a council and probably incorporate parts of all of them. None of these is what the finished product is gonna look like. So.
Well, I think I was one that told you that. They were all had great little bit of stuff about all of them. I like this, it's very thorough about all of it, but it's a little bit busy for a seal. I think it's too much. I think there's some kind of way, I'm not saying I know the answer, how to simplify it and make it. I love this, but it doesn't show all of that. But it's appealing to visual art is better. When you look at that, if you put that as a seal, in my opinion, it's too much. I don't know how to.
Especially when you shrink it down.
Exactly. I don't know. I think if we could come up with a way to put all of that on one, but simplify it, make it less, it would be more, if that makes sense. That's just my opinion.
Can you explain what each of the things are in it? Like, I can't tell what stands for what.
Well, like, Moana community was originally agriculture. But the timber company came, Atlantic Coast Timber Company came, and they brought the train.
So that's a saw blade that's up near the tractor? Is that
Yeah.
what it is?
We had a sawmill or wood yard down here at the railroad track.
Okay. And what's the house thing on the left?
That's my church.
Yeah, that's a church.
Oh, oops. I can't tell from here. And what's on the bottom right? There's a bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's the fire department, flowers and a cardinal.
Yeah.
And then it's got a realtor symbol. Then it's got the old Bass Brothers store.
Right.
Top left is the church. Then it's got the saw blade, top right, and a tractor for agriculture.
Okay.
And then the train and a tree in the middle for the timber. And it hits all the points that we want to get, or that I like getting, but it's just,
It's too many.
it's too busy,
You have to cut some out.
especially if you put it on seal and reduce the size.
Richard, did you say you had access to some people that did seals or made seals or?
Well, I mean, that's,
Could you kind of write down what, I was just asking, could we write down what points y'all wanted? And then could you get it, that would even see what they would charge us to
yeah, we can check and see,
make
you
a
know,
seal
I don't
for
have
us
any
to see?
connections anymore, but I can ask Patrick.
And we could write down what all of us want to see, but, I mean, I think it needs to be the agriculture and the timber and the train type.
We did school seal, you know.
Uh-huh, yeah. I thought you had said you had access,
Yeah.
could get access to the people that could make the seal.
That's cool, but it's too much of the train part of it. In the train deal, like the bell out here, there was already a main track that goes east to west. But when the timber company came, they had a side track, a smaller training track, and that bell is the only thing left of that train. It went from here to up through Castalia and brought the saw logs back to here. And during World War I, the train got cut up for the metal for the war.
Wow.
And the bell's the only thing that's left in some track.
And the final shot of World War I was actually
Come on.
metal from Momar.
Well, I hadn't heard that one. I hadn't heard that, but I like that.
That's a good story though. You
Don't
had me
you
going
print
for a
that.
second.
Is that true?
Don't you
I
print
know,
that.
he had a face, so I knew it was.
Fact checkers will
We'd
be
get
out.
more phone calls. We would have the Tar Heel Traveler here,
Was it really?
and we're gonna send him to see Richard too.
Sorry, you were out trying to knock your face.
So what's the name of the company that you're gonna ask about the seal design? Do you know?
Um,
I've got an individual that I'm talking with, but it wouldn't be a company, it's just an individual.
So you're just informally
But Richard's
talking?
got somebody he's talking.
we're informed.
Okay.
Thanks. So, what do we do?
So work in progress.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We don't need to table it, it's just going forward. Rich is gonna talk with somebody. And
Sounds good.
I think everybody, all of us need to put down what we want to see on the seal. Maybe 2 or 3 things. And then when they cross-reference them, they'll see what's going on. Because I think we pretty much got that. But
Right.
officially, we need to
limiting it to 3, did you say? Did you say that?
Oh, no, I don't remember how many.
Will fit?
Well, like
Yeah,
you said,
we're gonna
we
have
don't want
to
it
put
too busy, you know, but we
You
want
want to get the point across, but you don't want it so, you can't understand, you want to be able to quick reference it and look at it.
And what we may end up doing is having a large version and a small version. You know, the large version may show everything in full detail, and then the.
Well, they need
and
to
when
be
we-
the same though.
They have to be very similar, they don't necessarily have to be dead on. Cause once you, again, if you're, from the same standpoint as if you take a big design and shrink it down, you lose detail and lose it gets busy. If you take a design that you've made specifically to be tiny, and then you make it this big, it looks empty. So you gotta
Compromise.
meet it, yeah, you gotta meet
But
the
most,
middle.
I've never seen a town have 2 different symbols.
Believe it or not, look closer.
What's that? I hadn't seen one.
The towns in particular that have like a flag and a letterhead, look at them closely. They don't match. They're close, but
Yeah,
they
but
don't match.
There's not one of them considered an official seal.
Correct,
Right.
correct. So,
So there again, I've never seen one with 2 seals.
so. That one's a work in progress. So plaques.
So what we decided to do, we're gonna give Richard copies of the.
Yeah.
And let him proceed from there to get out with the seal people, correct?
Exactly. Go ahead. The
Okay.
plaques.
Here's the plaques that came back for Kenneth Parker. I'll let you pass them around. That's the proclamation that will hang here in the town. We had talked about getting the wood to match the one that's in there, but it was not gonna match because that is how many years old.
right.
So I got it in that one right there.
So this is the one that would stay in town hall. That's the one that would go to the family.
And that's the one that will go to Kenneth's family. Colleen could not be here for this meeting, but she said in May, she could hopefully make arrangements so she could be here to get it. She had a doctor's appointment, I believe.
She is practicing driving.
Yeah.
I hear she
I think
cut
she's,
grass on the lawn.
she has actually drove by herself to the Rotary building, so that's.
Yeah.
Good.
She's been other places with Stuart and Amy and Jordan, and
Right.
I even rode with her one time.
Is her hand doing better? That's good.
Well, when I went to see her to give her the money that day, she said it was still bothering her. But she had gone to Duke the day before to a new set of doctors. So, I'm hoping maybe they can help her out. I know Jordan came and helped her check in county money, because she couldn't really do that with her hand like it is. She,
No, thank you.
Think about that.
Sure is read.
It is red. It'll fade though. That's one thing about red, it doesn't last long. Red. Get it out of that box and let it sit in the sun. Be brown before you know
I'll be excused for 5 seconds.
it. Of course. She was writing water bottles too, so.
What's the spelling of Joanne Edwards' name? You know how there's,
I'll pass.
is it Joanne?
Joanne,
Yes.
she was asking about Joanne's name, how it's spelled, but we'll tell her.
Joanne Edwards,
Yeah,
She got.
J O
like
A
it's-
N N E.
okay.
We're prepared.
I'm gonna owe Mulmeyer for half a Kleenex box at this point.
There you go.
Bless you.
Thank you. I don't like taking, allergy stuff because they're not sticky.
Sneezy week was last week. I don't know what's sneezing this week. So, next. Then we have to, let me get here. We have one, go ahead.
Can I back up one step?
Yes.
For the participation of the examples of the town seal, I'd like to see the town center thank you for them participating to the 4 people. Can we do that?
A thank you
Make
note,
that in a motion?
like a thank you note.
Yeah, for participating.
Yeah.
And let them know that.
Is it a letter from you guys, or do I need to personalize it? How do you want it?
Just from the town.
Okay.
You know, I think it would be,
I think that's a good idea.
acknowledge them for participation. And also let them know that it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, we'll get there.
Even Chris down with the napkin.
That's right.
He apologized, he said that I had time at work and I just wasn't.
Hey, sometimes, napkin ideas turn into big things. So, you wanna do a motion on that, or you want me just to put together a letter and do it? Do
Letter of appreciation.
it. All right,
Short and sweet.
please make me a note on that, Sheila, so that I don't forget. I'm making a note myself.
We want the community to be involved and that's just another way to show we appreciate it. And I think they all are in the right, headed in the right
I
direction.
agree. Yeah.
I second. I know you did the first, right, motion.
Well, we didn't
We
actually,
didn't even do a motion, we're
it's
just
not
gonna.
actually a motion, it's just
A
a
request,
request.
Gotcha.
idea.
So we have an opening on the planning board, town alternate position. Do we have any recommendations for candidates to fill said position?
I left.
Anybody talk to anybody?
Kirky.
LaRue,
That was the one I was gonna
Me
suggest.
too.
she has, there's a couple things I want to say. She has showed interest in being involved with town in
Yep.
some form or fashion
Mhm.
in the past, consistently. She's lived here 20 years. She stays right in the middle of Mulmeyer, sort of, kind of. And she has a lot of, she's an engineer with the
Right.
state.
Mhm.
She retired and she works for an engineering firm now.
Right.
Her nickname is Roundabout that I gave her. She's in charge of all these roundabouts being built.
Oh, I thought I liked her.
Oh, trust me, she hears it.
She doesn't like to hear you complain about it.
She didn't put them in place, but she's in charge of getting them put there.
Right.
But anyway, I think she would be a candidate worth considering and talking to.
What's your name?
LaRue
We talk
Weaver,
to anybody else?
LARUE.
I did say something to,
Is
Joel
the R
Puckett,
big?
just to make him aware there was an opening and, I didn't pin him down as to
Press.
whether, but he's gonna have surgery tomorrow on his back, so he didn't have time to ponder. So I'll hit him up if you think that's a viable candidate.
What's this person's name, Richard?
Joel Puckett.
I think we need to talk to both, truthfully. We move on. We got trash pickup next on the agenda. Sheila has priced out hiring it out.
It's $84 for a quarter. We could do.
So $320-ish a year.
No offense, Andy.
I'd be glad to
Seems
Well, I
wrong.
think we should hire, I mean, honestly,
Right.
I believe it should be
Yeah.
something that we pay somebody to
Are you talking about from the town hall or like?
Yeah, no, from the town hall.
No, it's down hall. I actually thought about asking them, do they want to try to see about getting that service for the citizens of Beaumont, but I didn't.
It's the mobile home park already has somebody pick up, that's that GFL.
That's the only place around here.
Huh?
That's the only place around here.
Yeah.
So this is for
GFL.
GFL?
Yes.
So they already pick up, and they pick up at Marshall's place too.
I was just, I thought about,
I just asked him how much they charge for the whole town.
yeah. I'm not sure how many houses that would be though.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, we'd have to definitely map that out for them. But for the town hall purposes, I'm glad Sheila called because
Right.
now I can sign up with them too because Allison's tired of waiting on me to make it to the door.
But then let Nash County know, so they won't charge you a fee.
Oh, I'll still be taking them.
Oh, okay, okay. I just thought I'd let you know that way. As you know, they were having some issues with Spring Hope people coming and bringing stuff to the dump. And they had, that's why they started issuing that permit thing. If you don't have that, you can't put trash out.
But they're charging us at a residential rate, they're not charging us at a town rate.
Right, yeah.
When I talked to some of the other ones like Top Dog and them before, they wanted to charge us at like a commercial rate, a business
Oh,
rate.
yeah.
But I explained to the young lady that I talked to, we didn't have the need for a trash dumpster, we didn't need a dumpster.
Right.
We didn't have that much trash.
Did they'll furnish their own trash can?
Yes.
Yeah.
The setup is $124, it's a one-time payment,
Because that one,
and that would be for
Is
the
the one I
first
had.
quarter and delivery of it.
don't worry about where I got it, I just got it.
Right. I got some of those. So you want it back when they bring it?
I just wanna make sure they don't get it.
No worries, got it. Got it covered. So, do we have a motion to,
I make a
Sign up.
motion that we start having GFL pick up the trash for the town of Lamar.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor of trash pickup by GFL, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sign them up. Next is King Exterminating, renewal of contract for dehumidifier service.
Is that for this building?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's for that
Did we check with anybody else?
They installed it, so we've always stayed.
Okay.
I didn't look at anybody else.
Make a motion, we renew contract with King Exterminating for the dehumidifier service.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of renewing with King Exterminating? Say aye. Any opposed? Alright, we will renew with King. Alright, governmental meeting protocol. The kind of yellow sheet you have in your packet.
I just made a copy of the ordinance for Calvin, yeah.
And I bring your attention down near the bottom where it says attendance. Regular attendance and interest shall be considered prerequisites of membership. Failure to attend 3 consecutive meetings or 4 meetings in 12 months shall be considered as resignation unless the board determines by majority vote that a good and sufficient reason has been given for the member's absence. This has come into play during sports season, also we've had some call-in participation to meetings and things like that, and I think basically wanna determine whether that's acceptable. Call-in participation, can they vote by calling in? Because if you can't vote, you're not participating. And that becomes a bit of a sticky wicket, because a lot of places, most of our legislatures, most town councils, you must be present to vote. Even the US Congress firmed up that rule here recently. So basically, what it boils down to is we're talking about what constitutes attendance.
What constitutes what?
Attendance.
Is that yellow thing existing statute?
Yes.
Okay.
And I dug in this existing statute here, and it was great that you printed that. Actually matches almost word for word the statutes on council attendance, state statutes and stuff on council attendance and that kind of stuff too. So it all agrees. But what it doesn't define necessarily is attendance. And in the virtual age, I know with COVID, we would have had probably some virtual meetings. And so, is that a one-off or is that something that?
I think it's time for that to be over.
Yeah.
I agree. You have one step.
What about telephone?
I would say no. That's just my feeling. That would be the same as me saying this morning, I'd rather sit at home, drink coffee.
Right.
I'll do it from my bed.
I'll Zoom.
We did have, and I wasn't able to attend because I don't Zoom. But, you know, when we had those issues of maybe a tornado or something coming through, the COG meeting was like, you know,
Virtual.
like that. But other than that, we did have virtual meetings and everything when
Well,
COVID was
If
up.
everybody is participating that way,
Yeah.
it's different
It
than
was everybody.
me
participating.
choosing not
Right.
to make
Yeah.
my schedule available
Yeah.
to be there.
Yeah.
Do we also need to address what's considered an excused absence?
Getting complicated now.
I don't,
I was just throwing it out there, I didn't know.
to me, you're you're missing a lot of meetings, so to me, excused, unexcused is kind of an irrelevant thing.
Right.
If you're not meeting this standard, you're missing a lot of meetings, you're not even participating at that point.
Right.
You know, again, my opinion. If you're missing 75% of meetings,
Right.
it doesn't matter what your reason is. You've gotta be able to do the job, or don't sign up for it, let somebody else do it.
So this applies to all governmental meetings, including the planning.
Correct.
Yes.
And this is already on your books.
Correct.
So you're just revisiting it?
Mhm.
Okay.
So, non-virtual unless,
We wouldn't have anybody that's fell into that category we ever just missed.
We have not had anybody make it all the way to dismissal. We have had one or two get close.
It's on the planning board.
we did have one, that was what, that was before your time. Shealy, was it Mark Shealy?
Mark,
He missed more than 3 meetings in
he missed a lot, it's probably because of
sports. The children and work. I think that's his personal work and children.
And, you know, things happen, life happens.
Right.
Sometimes we have to go take care of ailing parents, or we have things like that. But unfortunately, the business of the town does not stop because we personally have to do something, which means we have to swallow the hard pill and step aside. You know, if I were having to,
how does that fall in for sickness or health?
same deal. I mean, we need you, or we need someone. You know, if I, God forbid, fell into ill health tomorrow, I'd be having to make that decision. And unfortunately, how I feel personally about making said decision is not factor in. It's how the business of the town is able to proceed,
Right.
because that's the mission.
Time stops for no one.
I'm a big mission focused person, whether it be church or home or business or whatever. And when you're truly mission focused, that's more whatever your mission is more important than everything else. And my personal feelings don't factor in. You know, and the town's mission is the town's business. So I think we all agree that physical attendance is what constitutes attendance.
Right.
We should put that into a motion.
I make a motion that, regular attendance be in person, for the meeting, of the Board of Adjustments, or the planning board.
For all government
For all
meetings.
government, yeah, us included, yeah.
I second.
And coming into place, once in a while, Sheila will call on the phone to everybody. I mean, that'll, in case that's needed, it'll still be allowed.
Right.
I mean, it don't happen
That's
often.
not a meeting.
It doesn't happen often, but once in a while, she'll call and get all of it.
I'll send us an email one.
Yeah.
So the motion is, all attendance shall be defined as physical presence for all government meetings. All in favor?
So how, is there gonna be a guideline for if you miss X amount of meetings, you'll be replaced?
Well, and that's,
There already is.
That's already
there.
yeah, if you miss,
But that's not gonna change.
right,
Mhm.
we're only defining attendance. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. One more, unless somebody's got something else. I told y'all it'd be a long one.
Yeah, Sheila had already reported.
I tried to order it, buddy.
Telephone and internet service. Right speed's getting a little high.
It used to be $154 a month for our internet and our phone service. And now they went exponentially went up to $224 a month.
Really, right?
For one phone line and our internet, which is ridiculous. They've got some kind of, the business bundle that we're in is what went up. That went up to $164. Everything else expenditure kind of stayed the same. And I called Spectrum, trying to see if they would be any cheaper in internet and phone. And theirs is like a one-time installation fee of $200. And then it would be a monthly fee of like $171 plus taxes, of course, you gotta pay your tax.
Oh, yeah.
So in the long run, that's not gonna save us a whole lot of money.
No.
So I think my next step, I'm gonna check with Verizon. And see, because they have internet now too,
Oh, they do, okay.
and see if we can get it cheaper that way, but I don't know if we can keep the same phone number.
Right,
That'll be the only backside of it.
right.
Because there's not really another phone provider, I don't think, besides Spectrum and Brightspeed. That would have both. It would be a little bit cheaper to go with Spectrum, but not a whole lot cheaper. So I don't know if it's worth the trouble. And I tried to call Brightspeed to see if we could get bill adjusted, and I haven't gave up. But Will is my witness. They told me the whole time would be 10 minutes, and I laid the phone on my desk, and I stayed there holding for over 30 minutes.
I can believe that.
And never got to a human.
Yeah.
But if you go online and try to chat with them, they can't help but you have to call the 800 number and
Right,
for you.
exactly, yeah. Yeah.
So I never got to speak with anybody at Brightspeed to try to reduce the rate to something lower. But I guess I'll keep having to try. But I was thinking Spectrum would be better, so it'll probably be on the list for next month. Yeah. Because I don't think it would save us a lot it would save us, what, $30, $40?
Right.
Switch to Spectrum.
Well, I see here we're paying for multi-line business.
Yeah, and if I
We only
gotta
got
get
two
that to a
lines.
human, no, we only have one. That's what I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but.
Okay.
The main thing they bumped their boss was that business bundle jump for $164.99. I don't know why it went up so high, unless it just switched to Brightspeed rates, and CenturyLink rates.
So that's a continuing saga.
Yes.
We were hoping to have more info by now.
I was hoping to have more info, you have something like a visual rate, but I did not get it. Like I said, getting in touch with a human proved to be harder than I thought it should be.
They make it difficult.
Yes, they do.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's probably gonna be a continuation.
Okay.
I'll see what else I can find out.
Alright. Does anyone have anything further for this marathon meeting today?
On a cover letter that Sheila sent us, I thought might be bringing in lunch.
We considered it.
I know, we did consider it. I think North Mid-East talked about all this stuff a little faster than what we thought.
We were expecting this to actually take a little longer than that, so.
I imagine the next one might take a little longer.
Oh, yeah.
Personally, I just, And I think all of you do get the seriousness of what we're working on here and how important this is to our future as a town. Let's not hesitate to get together and do working groups, sit around the table, not in an actual meeting and be like, what's this mean? What's that mean? And just kind of, just talk. We're gonna need that. Between those of us in the room right now, plus the planning board members. A handful of us sitting in a room together, digging into it, and what's this look like in real life? Because, like I said, we have not hit this yet, but I've watched it happen over the years. Areas that become attractive to developers, one of their tactics is to dig into your zoning and look at what you're not doing.
Right.
And to sue you over it.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that we are very serious, that we put in the work, that we're not just phoning it in. And it's not always gonna be fun. Zoning can be boring, zoning can be tedious. And you know, but it's important. Like I said before, this is, all our hearts are to keep it Nomar, this is our brain. And we gotta have it intact. And we gotta be able to stand in court and say, yep, this is what we're doing, this is why we did it, and all that. And if we can't do that, we don't stand a chance when they come knocking. So, that's all I have today. I would love a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Yes, you that.
Meeting adjourned.
Go down, yes, you
You might wanna take a picture of these, give you your person. Oh, you did?